We're going to tie up a split case Baetis nymph. This was just a result of kind of freestyling a bit, getting ready to fish a highly pressured tailwater coming up towards the end of April. Wanted to have some Baetis in my box that really educated fish aren't going to ignore. So hopefully this works. I think it will. We're tying this on a TMC 3761. This one's in number 16. I'm tying these down to 18. You can tie them down to 20 as well. This has a 2.4 millimeter tungsten bead, and I'm going to put about 5 wraps of 0.015 lead wire on, mainly to lock the bead in place. Kind of fattens up the thorax as well. So I'm going to go ahead and push those lead wraps up underneath of the bead. Really kind of push it up into there. And when I build this thread dam, I'm using Vivus 12-aught dark olive. It's C11. Build this thread dam behind there. Once I get my thread started here, I'm going to start pulling some of these wraps so that they pull it up into the bead. Really lock it down so it doesn't move around. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the tag. Then I'll go ahead and finish that thread dam and get some wraps over the top of the wire to lock it in place and make sure it's nice and flush. I use my tweezers on it since it's such small, soft wire. Take my wraps back to the hook bend. I'm going to tie in my tail. This is Coq de Leon in light Pardo. It's from a whiting tailing pack. Grab about a dozen or so fibers. I'm going to get a couple of loose thread wraps over the top. Make sure that it's situated right on top of the hook shank. And then I'm going to pull it up into place so that it's about the length that I want it, which really is about the length of the body, maybe a little bit less. And I'll get some thread wraps up to the point of my thread ramp, trim that off, and then get a couple more thread wraps in place to lock down those cut fibers there. Now I'm going to take some UTC Ultra wire in Sculpin Olive in the brassy size. Clip off a little length of that, and I'm going to wrap that in right on the side of the hook with touching thread wraps all the way back. I want to make sure I have decent thread coverage over this wire, because especially towards the tail, I'm not going to be building up, any more taper towards the tail. So I want to make sure that it's covered up with thread and I don't have the wire poking through or exposed on the side of the hook shank. I'm going to go ahead and kind of build up a decent tapered body up to the thread ramp before I wrap in the ribbing. I'm going to wrap the wire the opposite way that I wrapped the thread. really pretty tight wraps. I'm going to get like maybe 5 or 6 wraps that you'll be able to see after I've tied in my thorax. Not only does it really give it a highly segmented look, but it's also going to kind of add to the weight of the fly. Once I've got that nice and secure, I can helicopter off the tag on the wire. Now I'm going to coat the body with some UV clear fly finish Loon Flow. So I'm going to put a little drop on there and a little drop on the bottom to make sure it's fully covered, and then I'm going to dab off the excess with my finger, just like you would do with like a thread Frenchie or something. So you wind up with the coating locking everything in place and kind of smoothing out the segmentation, but not so much that it really kind of kills the look of the segmentation. So just hit it with my finger a few times to dab off the excess, and then I hit it with my light. Now I'm going to take some super floss in Rusty Olive, and I'm going to clip off 2 bits of this super floss. This is going to be the split portion of my case, the wing case that is. So let's take one of those and hold it in my lips for a minute and tie in just a couple loose wraps. Well, one loose and one tightening, and then I'm going to go ahead and tie in the other one right next to it, and they're just sitting on top of the hook shank but next to each other, not overlapping. So now I'm going to take some Blue Dun Antron, and I'm going to clip off just a half of one of the strands. I don't want too much. So you can see that I've already tied one of these, so I had kind of a half all ready to go. I'm going to get a couple thread wraps over that and then pull it into place so that the length is about right. Then I'll get a couple more wraps over that, not too tight, because now I'm going to pull it into place a little bit more until a couple of the strands start to pop. Throw those out and trim it up a little bit and solidify my wraps. Now my wing case is all ready to tie in the 3 pieces of the split wing case. So I'm going to take some of these micropine squirrel zonker strips. This is in dyed olive, and I'm going to grab some of these fibers with my clip, but I'm not going to grab the entire length of these fibers because I just want some short legs in my dubbing loop here. So I'm going to grab just the tips here, just the olive portion, right like that, and then I'm going to carefully trim that off. As you see, just a little bit. I'm going to set that aside while I make myself a dubbing loop. So just a few wraps to form up the loop, and then I'm going to take my thread around the dubbing loop a couple times to form up a good V. Lock that V in place. Wrap forward a few times, and then I'm going to grab my Stonfo ball bearing rotary dubbing loop tool. I like the V V on this because you can pull down on it and it closes up that loop for you, which is really handy with the clip. Because now I can take just the butt ends of these fibers and stick them into the open dubbing loop. And when I grab my tool and apply some tension, it closes the loop on those, and I can pull my clip away carefully. Kind of even up those butt ends. And then I'm going to spin it just enough to form up what looks like a nice kind of hackle of squirrel hackle, you know. It's just a couple wraps of it. It's pretty sparse. So once I've got a couple 3 wraps on there, I preen back on those fibers and put a couple more wraps to lock them in a back facing position. And then I'll wrap my tying thread around that loop once, carefully come around the front, around it again, back over the top of the bead. I can clip that away. Don't apply tension to that as you clip it away because you don't want to have it pop through your tying thread. So here's where the fun is really. It's the split case. Take the blue dun antron and pull it over the top of that squirrel, kind of preening back the squirrel fibers at the same time so that you don't have any pop up through there. Put a couple thread wraps over the top of it. And that needs to be nice and centered, because now we're going to pull our super floss on either side of it, making sure that there's, you know, the antron is visible in that split. So one on one side, one on the other side. Try that again. One on the other side. Lock it down with another thread wrap. Get a thread wrap in front of it. Lock it down with another thread wrap. And we're going to pull up on all 3 strands at once, and we're going to trim them off. But don't pull hard, because you'll stretch that. You'll stretch that super floss, and it'll pop out of there when you trim it. Once that's trimmed off, it's time to whip finish. So we're going to put a 3-turn whip finish over the top of the wing case. Being careful not to trap any squirrel fibers while we're at it. And then we're going to put one more 3-turn whip finish in front of the wing case, where the wing case meets the bead, to kind of hide those thread wraps. Tighten it down. And trim off the tying thread. Now we're not going to use a lot of resin on the top of this wing case, and we're going to use flow again, because really we just want to give it a little bit of shine. Because it's flow and it kind of runs fast, runs easy, I'm going to have my light all ready to go in case, so that I can hit it real fast with the light. Put a little drop to kind of form a solid top because it soaks in a bit. I'm going to build it up just real carefully. If I can get a little drop out my dropper here, would be nice. There we go. Dab that little drop onto the top there. Hit it with my light again. One more time. You don't want a big fat wing case on top of this guy. There we go. You just want enough that it's nicely coated and gives it some shine on that split case. And you'll see why in a sec here. And that is the split case Baetis Nymph. can kind of use your Velcro to pick out some dubbing, some of that squirrel dubbing, get the legs going, the orientation that you want them. The legs on this one are pretty sparse. I'd use some heavier squirrel in the dubbing loop to get some variation on my flies. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead and don't forget to thumbs up it and subscribe to my channel. I've got a number of tutorials on my channel now. Tight lines.